good morning, everybody. Now that we have discussed about anterior pituitary, we go on to discuss about the posterior pituitary, also called as neurohypophysis. This neurohypophysis has two hormones, which are ADH and oxytocin. As you all know, these two are synthesized in the hypothalamus and later it flows through the axoplasm through the neurohypophyseal tract and stored in the posterior pituitary. So we need to understand that the hormones were discussed, and so the anatomy is posterior pituitary is a downgrowth of hypothalamus. It is connected to the brain by a stalk called as hypothalamo-hypophyseal tract. Through this, axons and nerve fibers which originate in the supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of hypothalamus, they descend into the posterior pituitary. So it's an outgrowth of the floor of the third ventricle. It's mainly composed of glial cells called as pituocytes. The pituocytes are the supporting cells. So they are synthesized in the cell bodies of supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of hypothalamus. They are transported to neurohypophysis by the axons of these cell bodies. The nerve endings of these cell bodies form bulbous knobs containing secretory granules. So this is the structure, how they are synthesized into the cell bodies, and they flow through the axoplasm and they are stored in the posterior hypophysis, and these are called as the neurohormones. These secretory granules end on the surface of the capillaries, thereby releasing secretion into the circulation via the capillaries. So as we discussed, the two hormones are ADH and vasopressin. ADH is also called as antidiuretic hormone, also called as vasopressin. Other hormone is oxytocin. So the hormones are oxytocin and vasopressin. They are synthesized in the cell bodies of the magnocellular neurons and supraoptic and paraventricular nucleus of hypothalamus. So we need to understand that oxytocin is predominantly synthesized in the cell bodies of paraventricular nucleus, whereas vasopressin is synthesized in the supraoptic nucleus. So this is a structure where you can see how the cystine is, you can see the leucine is replaced by phenylalanine isoleucine. You can see the third and the eighth leucine is replaced by arginine. The isoleucine is replaced by phenylalanine. So the precursor molecule is neurophysin. We have presophysin, which is synthesized into prooxyphysin. So when the leader sequence is removed, we have the oxytocin, which is packaged into the secretory granules called as the herring bodies. They are transported down along the axons through what is called as axoplasmic flow. The precursor molecules are cleaved in the nerve terminal and they are stored in the nerve endings. So we are discussing about antidiuretic hormone, which is also called vasopressin, and the general biosynthesis. So these are termed as neurosecretions, also called as neurohormones. Hormones are released into the blood vessels due to the electrical activity in the nerve terminal, or it is basically calcium dependent exocytosis of the hormone from the nerve terminal where it is stored. This is called excitation secretions coupling. So we go on to discuss, we discussed about the biosynthesis and the secretion of the posterior pituitary hormone. Now we go on to discuss in detail about what is the functions of oxytocin. It's a nanopeptide with amino acid similar to ADH, except the third position has isoleucine, and the eighth position as leucine. You can see that how they are replaced in third and eighth position. The site of synthesis is paraventricular nucleus of hypothalamus. To some extent, 1/6 of the synthesis takes place even in supraoptic nucleus of. The actions are, it helps in milk ejection and contraction of proteins, and the mechanism of action is via G protein mediated. And this is also called as milk ejection reflex or Ferguson reflex. So when you stimulate the touch receptors in the skin around the nipple by baby suckling the nipple, the afferent nerve endings from the mammary gland via the spinal cord through the ascending tracts end in the paraventricular nucleus, and they stimulate the paraventricular nucleus in hypothalamus, wherein the action potential travel down the nerve terminal to posterior pituitary, causing the release of oxytocin into the blood. Oxytocin stimulates the myoepithelial cells to contract. So we need to understand the more important thing is how does it act on the breast, causing the milk ejection. It acts on the myoepithelial cells, and thereby there is ejection of milk. So when you stimulate, or most of the time they teach us by just when the cheek touches the nipple, there is somesthetic stimulus from the nipple is carried through the spinal cord, cause into the hypothalamus, and causes, so it's a neuroendocrine reflex. So increased suckling increases the stimulation. It's a positive feedback. The more the suckling, more the amount of milk which is ejected. It's terminated when the baby stops suckling. So this is what happens whenever the receptors are stimulated in the nipple or the skin. They are carried through the spinal cord. They cause the release of oxytocin from the paraventricular, which enters the blood and acts on the myoepithelial cells, causing the ejection of milk, also called as milk letdown reflex or milk ejection. It has effects on uterus. In 1906, there was a posterior pituitary extract was given, and it caused powerful contraction. And process of delivery is also a positive feedback. It increases the sensitivity of endometrium to oxytocin. The endometrial sensitivity to oxytocin is increased by estrogen. Thereby, there is increased estrogen receptor and decreased by progesterone. So, there are two functions of oxytocin. One is parturition and milk ejection. So, what happens is, whenever there is descent of fetus, there is dilatation of cervix. That is, the descent of the head of the baby at term causes stretch of the cervix. The impulses are carried, and there is stimulation of stretch receptors, which in turn causes activity in the afferent. That is, the impulses are carried to the hypothalamus, stimulating the paraventricular nucleus, causing the release of oxytocin into the blood, resulting in contraction of uterus. So whenever there is descent of head of the baby at term causes stretch of the cervix, the impulses are carried to the hypothalamus. This results in the release of oxytocin from the posterior pituitary. The oxytocin acts on the gravid uterus to produce contraction of smooth muscles and relaxation of cervix to deliver the baby. During labor, number of oxytocin receptors are increased. This is an example of positive feedback exam. So that thereby resulting in expulsion of fetus. So expulsion of fetus is also called as parturition. So this is how the baby head stretches the cervix, causing the dilatation. The stretch in turn excites the fundic contraction, that is the fundus of the uterus. The fundic contraction pushes the baby down, and thereby the stretch of the cervix is increased more and more, and the cycle repeats over and again. So it's a positive feedback mechanism. So always there is this reflex of milk ejection and parturition, both are. So what is milk ejection? Once again, this is a neuroendocrine reflex. Touch receptors are present in the breast around the nipple. Suckling the nipple stimulates these touch receptors. Impulses from the nipple reach the supraoptic and paraventricular through somatic touch pathways. This causes secretion of oxytocin from the posterior pituitary. Oxytocin is then carried by the blood to the breast, where it causes contraction of myoepithelial cells, resulting in ejection of milk. So, what is a neuroendocrine reflex? You can see a receptor. The reflex arc is different here. So, there is a nervous and a endocrine component here. Whereas in the normal nervous system, the reflex arc, there is an afferent integrating center and an efferent with a effector. Okay. So, there is a difference both nervous and, so what is it is the stimulus from the nipple is carried via spinal cord, goes and stimulates the release of oxytocin, and which in turn enters the blood, which becomes endocrine and has its action through on the uterus. And so the other function, it causes you luteolysis and contraction of vas deferens in males. Males also produce considerable amounts of oxytocin and helps in fallopian tube motility. So it can induce labor and prevent postpartum debridement. Nowadays they give management of active management of third stage of labor. You induce labor. We have synthetic components like syntocinon, which are available. So vasopressin is an antidiuretic hormone found mainly in the supraoptic nuclei of the hypothalamus. It is a polypeptide containing 9 amino acids. They both are similar. Phenylalanine and arginine of ADH is replaced by leucine, isoleucine, and oxytocin. It prevents diuresis, so it is antidiuresis. More important than vasoconstriction. Secreted by supraoptic, contains 9 amino acids, so it's a nanopeptide. It maintains extracellular fluid volume and osmolarity. It acts on the DCT and collecting duct of the kidney, thereby helps in reabsorption of water and thereby maintains the volume, more important than maintenance of osmolarity. So how does it act? ADH increases permeability of the distal convoluted tubule and collecting duct to water, enhancing water reabsorption. ADH causes insertion of protein water channels in the principal cells of the collecting duct. These water channels are called as aquaporins. In the absence of ADH and DCT, DCT and collecting duct becomes impermeable to water. This prevents reabsorption of water and therefore produces dilute urine called as diabetes insipidus. It's a potent vasoconstrictor. In higher concentration, it becomes vasopressin, presses the blood vessel. So it is a potent vasoconstrictor, but not in physiological concentration. However, during hemorrhage, vasopressin levels can increase, causing vasoconstriction, and it is mediated by V1A receptors. Whereas the action on the DCT and collecting tubule is by V2 receptors. The V1A and V1B are, V1A is on the vascular smooth muscle and V1B on the anterior pituitary. So generally it has water reabsorption, vascular constriction, regulation of extracellular fluid volume, and stimulates the CRH from, that is corticotropin releasing hormone, from hypothalamus. It facilitates memory and helps in glycogenolysis, breakdown of the glycogen. In high doses, it causes vasoconstriction and increases blood pressure. It causes contraction of mesangial cells present in JG cells, JG apparatus, juxtaglomerular apparatus, and reduces the GFR. It inhibits renin secretion by acting on the JG cells. So you can see ADH acts on the V2 receptors, increases the conversion from ATP to cyclic AMP, which in turn acts on the protein kinase A and resulting in the insertion and gene transcription and thereby water reabsorption. In simple term, the water channels, there is increase in permeability to water reabsorption because of the insertion of the protein channels due to the action of cyclic AMP via the V2 receptors. Thereby there is water reabsorption. This type of water reabsorption is called as facultative, whereas obligatory water reabsorption, as we discussed in renals, was in proximal convoluted tubule. Due to the osmotic gradient created by the sodium, water is reabsorbed. That is obligatory in the PCT. Whereas in the DCT and the collecting duct, it is facultative because of the presence of water channels called as aquaporins. So it is regulated by osmoregulation depending on the plasma osmolality, and to maintain the extracellular fluid we have volume regulation. So whenever there is diarrhea, vomiting, there can be decreased extracellular fluid volume, or blood pressure can decrease with increased plasma osmolality, thereby the low pressure receptors in atria and veins causing vagal activity to be decreased, resulting in ADH secretion, increased plasma ADH and water reabsorption from kidney, and restoration of extracellular volume. So we have diabetes insipidus, which can be neurogenic diabetes insipidus due to the deficiency of ADH, or nephrogenic when it is mutation of V2 receptors. So diabetes insipidus develops due to deficiency of ADH. It is caused by disease of supraoptic and paraventricular nuclei of the hypothalamus. The patient passes large quantity of dilute urine with reduced specific gravity. This is polyuria. It is associated with increased fluid intake, that is polydipsia. Unlike diabetes mellitus, the blood sugar levels are normal in diabetes insipidus. In diabetes mellitus, blood sugar levels are elevated. The treatment for diabetes insipidus can be treated by administration of desmopressin, an analog of ADH having a longer half-life through mucous membrane of the nose. So nephrogenic is, in this type of diabetes insipidus, the kidneys are unable to respond to the ADH. ADH production can be normal. The SIADH is syndrome of inappropriate hypersecretion of ADH. Here the patients with cerebral and pulmonary disease tend to hypersecrete vasopressin. So characterized by polyuria, polydipsia, decreased ADH. We have neurogenic, which is central, decreased synthesis and secretion of ADH. It can be inherited in the form of Wolfram syndrome, or acquired because of the presence of tumors of the supraoptic end, or nephrogenic because of failure of ADH sensitive receptors in nephrons. So it's a receptor defect in nephrogenic, and diuresis occurs. Urine is dilute and hypotonic with reduced specific gravity. Syndrome of inappropriate ADH secretion, excess ADH secretion despite no continued renal excretion of sodium. There can be hyponatremia where sodium is less than 110, increased blood volume and hypoosmolality. Normal osmolality is plasma osmolality 290 milliosmoles per liter of solution, and it is accompanied by neurological signs like irritability, confusion, muscle weakness and seizures. So to summarize, we have supraoptic and paraventricular nucleus located in the hypothalamus, which synthesize oxytocin and ADH. Oxytocin mainly acts on the breast to cause contraction of myoepithelial cells, resulting in milk ejection and expulsion of fetus, causing parturition, whereas ADH is mainly antidiuretic and helps in water reabsorption, and its deficiency can result in diabetes insipidus. Thank you.